to reconsider ordinance number 5453, amending chapter 6.32 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Noise Levels. Mayor Wheeler.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Council President. So on August 3rd, 2022, the City Council unanimously adopted amendments to the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Noise Levels. On August 11th, I exercised my authority and vetoed the ordinance. So I've sent you my objections. There was attachments that went with my letter, and it's now up to you to consider and my objections.
All right, so you don't want to present those at all, Mayor Wheeler?
They're in your packet. I was debating whether to just read what's in front of you, and I thought we'd just get.
I just meant for anybody who's watching. Vice President Chamberlain, go ahead.
Thank you, President Goodnow. Okay, thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Yeah, we all can read. We all read it. Hopefully, we can just kind of clear up any issues by just changing the wording for the Friday and Saturday for music venues. I think I'm not married to the idea of 200, and it seems like if that's all we got to do is move it to 100 feet, but just have those allowances for the hours to push back until. And I'm sorry, Kylie, Michael, I'm looking at the noise ordinance in the packet, and can you maybe direct me to the paragraph in question related to 200 feet?
Well, it's going to be in section 632.
Yeah, I think
632.
It's 050, public disturbance noises.
Thank you. Okay. So I just would like to propose that we just keep the same wording for the noise ordinance, but make that one modification for like leaving the time and place as discussed and changing it to 100 feet rather than 200 feet.
All right, thank you. Denise.
I'm actually cool with that. What I'm disappointed in, I think, is the process. And I know I keep talking about that, but at public safety and
Uh-oh.
and Chairperson Lieutenant Elton was representing, who I know and respect. He was representing the police department that day, and
sorry, I want to butt in, Denise. You froze there, and I wanted to hear what you had to say, and we lost about 20 seconds.
Lieutenant Elton was representing the police department that day, and I asked specifically, "Is this cool with you guys? Is this, is this?" I keep asking, truly, Mayor, in the few committee meetings I'm in, is this what the administration is supporting? I depend on the expertise of people like Lieutenant Elton and yourself, and especially department heads. I'm asking, because we're discussing this 200 feet, and I'm asking the police department specifically, this cool? Is this, I don't want to move forward with this if the police department has an issue. Now, I'm not saying that they did, but when I read your memo, Mayor, referred to your administration, and I'm thinking that, and city attorney too. I mean, give us pushback, man, so that we don't have to go through this. If I'd heard concerns from the administration when I was making that decision, I probably would have made a different decision because I respect administration and their professional viewpoint. So that's the only issue I have. I'm fully cool with what Jennifer just suggested. I want to make this right. We need a noise ordinance, bleep bleep, and you know, let's be done with it. But I time and time again, I'm feeling this, and I'm giving you all permission. You push back on me any day of the week. If it's going to make my decision a better one, then you tell me straight up, you know, that something's wrong, and I will respect that. But when I don't hear it, and then we go through this, I don't think the mayor should be put through, you know, having to veto, unless this is just the mayor. And I don't think that that's the case. I hope that's not the case. But that's all I'm going to say. I could go on and on, but I'm fine with the change that Jennifer stated.
Thank you, Jeff.
I want to understand what Jennifer just proposed because I'm not understanding it. So I thought I just heard that during the hours that are currently written there on Friday and Saturday evenings, the distance would be 100 feet. But my understanding is the default is already 100 feet. So am I missing something there?
Yeah, so there was an option where I believe the Friday, Saturday night also increased to 200 feet. And I can try to find.
Right, increased from the default of 100 to 200 during those Friday, Saturday hours. So what's the proposal change?
So I think the main ask, I believe, of administration, and then what Vice President Chamberlain just suggested is, let's just bring everything in line with the 100. And keep in mind that the 100 is doubling the distance that we've been using for 30 years and is more in line with other municipalities. So
that suggestion is basically 100% in line with the original administration's proposal.
I believe it is.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's,
We haven't.
yeah. So then we're back to where we were having several meetings of asking for a consideration of some exception on Friday and Saturday nights for live music. So we're back to the original bill, basically, where several of us were asking for a amendment to consider live music. So it seems like a step back to exactly where we were. I'll leave it there for now. I just wanted to make sure I understood that proposal completely.
Yeah. Jennifer, if you want to clarify something, but I gotta get through a round here of everybody. So if you want something quick, go ahead.
The time is extended on the weekends, so it's extended till 11 as opposed to 10 o'clock on the regular weekdays. Jeff.
So the only difference between the original proposal and what you're proposing is a 1 hour extension on Friday and Saturday nights.
I will say yes, but I will say that originally, and most other municipalities have a 50-foot rule. So we're not back to square one, Jeff. We're still doubling the distance. And we're adding an hour on Friday and Saturday nights.
We're back to the proposal that we had 3 meetings over.
No.
Yes,
That
the original
timing-
proposal that came to council this year started with 100 feet.
We're not back to the original one because we have extended the Friday and Saturday night. This is proposed still, of course. So the Friday and Saturday night has an additional hour allowance.
So
Actually,
correct.
yeah, so we're not back to the same proposal.
So, right, the only difference between the proposal we started with this year and what you're proposing is the extra 1 hour on Friday and Saturday nights.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. Thank you.
All right, I see a couple city attorneys have their hands up. So if you guys want to clarify the process on this, and I'm just going to ask everybody to really use clear language when you talk about original. So there's the original that we had, there's the original that was submitted by administration, then we came up with a new version. So just be clear, either city attorney can go ahead and speak.
Sure. So I think that actually that Councilmember Coughlin's interpretation is correct, because if you look at our primary enforcement tool, which is 632050, which is what was originally proposed this year, you're looking at a 100-foot buffer for public disturbance noises really at any time of the day. If the proposal is to eliminate the 200-foot buffer for music coming from these commercial establishments, I think that you would be eliminating that exemption entirely, because it would just default back to the 100-foot rule.
Okay, let's go to Anna.
Thanks. Let me just lower my hand. Okay. So this is a question for all of you, but more specifically responding to Jeff's question, which is what council asked for several times was an exemption specifically for commercial music venues. And what we have now is this subsection G of what, 0.050 something something. And it that's the only reference to a commercial music venue. So I think Jeff's concern is well placed, which is there's no exemption for commercial music venues in this current noise ordinance. And that was what we were trying to get. And I know like the last time this came to a vote, it just seemed so unfair to me that noise was happening in the neighborhoods in my district and in other districts. I care about them too. And the police had nothing to enforce. There was no noise ordinance. So this seemed to me like 90% of good. Let's just get a noise ordinance going. But there is the exemption for commercial music venues is not as complete as I think we were looking for. Is that correct, Jeff? Am I expressing your concerns correctly?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay. So if there is a way that we can do that, that would be great. I feel very certain, and in fact, I would put money on it, that nobody in this meeting wants to discuss the noise ordinance again, ever. And yet it's our duty and responsibility to put a good noise ordinance out there that makes sure people can go to live music and make sure that people can sleep safely and quietly in their homes at night. Both those things. Thank you.
Eric.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't recall a mayor vetoing a 7-0 council vote ever in the history of city council that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. Only been on for whatever, how many years, 12 plus. I was so proud of this council. Administration wanted to pass their ordinance the way they had it written. We took in consideration the input from the public, from restaurateurs, the affected entities. And in the end, we had a product where we reached consensus through negotiation and give and take, and it passed 7-0. I read the mayor's rebuttal here. I remember his rebuttal during the actual reading of the ordinance before the council voted. I don't see any new information other than the obvious. You increase the distance from 100 to 200, more properties potentially could be affected. That's not news to me. I hope it's not news to anyone else on council. So I won't get into that. I suggest, and we all had agreed, if it doesn't work, let's give it a try. And the administration kept on saying, we need to have a noise ordinance, pass something. They had more than ample time to give us any statistical information as this ordinance was being revised. They provided information, I don't know exactly what, from the Public Safety Committee, but the ordinance that we passed is what came out of that Public Safety Committee through negotiation. And I would encourage the council to stick to their guns. You don't even have to read this ordinance. No one even has to make the motion. It could just die right there. Let it die. And that'll override the veto. Let's put the ordinance in place. If there are issues, the administration can go through the Public Safety Committee and say, look, it's not working because of X, Y, and Z. That's my opinion on it.
Okay, so I probably should have said that, I mean,
Um,
we have, our options here are to, adopt administration's changes, stick to our guns, or kick it back to something else. So, Jennifer, do you have your hand up again or still? Go ahead.
yeah, I was waiting for the round to continue. So Eric, so what you're saying is the motion that I have on the floor, if nobody seconds it, then can you explain, and I apologize, can you explain that to me again about rules and procedures? I'm interested.
So actually, I believe our attorney, Ms. Fennell, should probably explain that. All
Yes.
I'm saying is if no one reads the original motion that's in the recommended motion, it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So a few things, just I'm having a little trouble with the same thing that Michael cautioned us on, and what do you mean by original? But I will just speak as to, there is a motion that's on your agenda, Bill, today that's prepared for passing what I would call the post-veto version of the ordinance that the mayor's asking you to pass. If the council doesn't want to pass that, the council can set the version that was passed by the council earlier, the August 3rd version that has the 200-foot exemption for commercial music on for a vote at the next council meeting. And if it is a super majority, so we can't put it on consent, it needs to go to general business.
Mhm.
If there's a second vote on that August 3rd version and there's a super majority, then that version is enacted.
I think
Yeah,
I
I
like
agree.
that better.
Yeah, I agree. I misspoke. Absolutely, Kelly, you are correct, obviously. So, but real quick, can I say, Jennifer?
Yes, sir.
I would suggest if the packet for next week have both motions on there, A and B, to be fair in this process.
Okay, so so I made like a suggestion. I don't know if it's necessarily a motion during study session, right? That we change it to 100 feet. But if we vote by a supermajority, then our 7-0, the same one that we had from our 7-0 decision, can go into effect. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you I don't know what you said, because are you
Okay.
saying with your change, whatever you pass next week, 7-0 is going to be the new ordinance? I will say, like, I think I would say if it was something different, there's a potential that you could go through a second veto process, but it's if you pass. So if you come up with something new, if that's what you're asking, then the mayor could veto that new ordinance. If you don't change anything from the August 3rd and you pass that with a supermajority, then I think that ordinance is, for lack of a better word, I mean, if that particular one that passed August 3rd either doesn't get a supermajority or just never goes to a vote, then it dies.
Okay, I think then I'd like to kind of go with the consensus of the group. I guess that's something I didn't know about, so I'm glad I learned that tonight. I think I really, like Eric said, I really appreciated the process that we went through. We went through this so much. And something that I did have a problem with is that this data, there was just words of caution brought from the administration. There was no data. And I think that the data that I was going under when I originally made the 200-foot recommendation came out of a study that's, but between that the very prolific case that we all know about in Bremerton, where it was stated that I think 180 feet would do it. And that both sides were agreeable. We had a lot of, feedback that was in support of the ordinance that we by consensus voted in. So, I think then I'm just going to sway back because that's what this process is about. And I think we should just go for it and vote into a supermajority. If that's what we still want to do,
Thank you.
assuming.
And just so a super majority is just 5 in favor of Jeff.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I think I want one last comment following several folks on the process in my head. And that is that, you know, this went through all of the previous council last year where there was a lot of input and talk about it. And you heard similar concerns that previous council had about live music, which is what kind of started this whole thing years ago. This year, our council, I feel like in the multiple sessions, asked several times and said, hey, we're hearing from constituents and folks that want to make sure there's an exemption for live music. So the council asked several times for that consideration. And I feel like the administration just said no, that they had plenty of time and ability to do an analysis, to reflect on that, to propose some sort of compromise, and it never happened. It was past our original proposal, and there will be no compromise. This is the first time that we're getting any sort of analysis, and I think as folks have said, it's really nothing. It's nothing new. It's not like you're highlighting existing music venues or ones that are likely to go in and really digging into it. I don't think there's any new information here. And I reflect on that the original person, the public comment we got who had an issue with, I believe, with Brother Don's and their music said, oh, wow, Friday and Saturday nights, that seems pretty reasonable to me. I also look at doubling a distance is about 6 decibels louder. It still seems like a reasonable compromise to me. I'd like to continue forward with it. And, you know, as we discussed, if this isn't working, we can change it. I do appreciate the mayor's comment in a previous session about considering businesses establishing and buying equipment and, you know, investing, but it's not like overnight there's going to be 10 music venues that open. You know, we will have time to see how this unfurls and adapt to it and adjust. That's my opinion. So thank y'all.
Okay, Anna.
Thank you. It would also be quite possible for, if such a business did want to open, for the permit department to say, hey, the council just passed this and they're keep taking it under advisement. You might want to think before blowing $1 million on equipment for your place. I think all of these comments are valid. And I think it's very odd to be considering overriding a veto. It's the first time I've ever seen this process. Yeah, I'm agreeing with the majority here, which is that if this turns out to be flawed in some way, we can take another look at it. And that's, I'm done commenting. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask the city attorney maybe a more technical question. If we leave this, well, actually, if we opt to stick to our previously 7-0 voted on version of this, and we bring it up in 2 weeks and fail to get a supermajority, what is the status of this ordinance, I guess? Is it?
So I think at that point it dies. And I will say, so
And that's the approved ordinance dies because the mayor vetoed it and we didn't get a supermajority, which is
right. That's what how it reads in the charter. And I'm certainly going to be looking at it more between now and 2 weeks from now, but I can't see any, because what it says, and I can just read you from the charter right now. Upon reconsideration, a majority +1 of the whole membership favor its passage, the ordinance shall become valid, notwithstanding the mayor's veto. And so while it doesn't say, and if it fails to get a supermajority, I mean, it says what it needs to become valid. And so therefore, I think if it doesn't get the supermajority, it doesn't become valid.
So I think that's where I'm leaning towards. I feel like we have a supermajority, but if we don't, if somehow we don't, then we go back and we hopefully make quick work of it and maybe submit it with some changes.
Sure. So what we'll do is we'll see where we are after a vote.
Yeah.
And either the August 3rd version will become the city's noise ordinance, or it won't. And then if something new becomes the city's noise ordinance, then we could potentially go back through this process.
Sure. Again, I've kind of mentioned this before, you know, and Jeff sort of brought this up too, but you know, the rate at which sound decreases over distance is fairly significant. So I don't think this is that big of a, I don't think it's the issue that everyone's made this out to be on both sides. But you know, I feel I'm hearing pretty clearly from council. Denise, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe we should use your idea of a quick, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down to take the pulse, or
I don't feel like
No.
we need that, and we got to be careful on using that kind of thing anyways.
okay.
I think that this will be on general business in 2 weeks.
It has to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be on general business, and we have to have a vote.
Yeah, but actually, let me be, now I got to be clear. Do we vote down in 2 weeks? Are we voting for our original, or are we voting down the requested changes?
Well, it depends who makes the motion, right? So if, let's say, for example, Councilmember Younger makes a motion to approve the ordinance passed by the city council on August 3rd,
Okay.
and he received an additional 4 votes and there were 5, then that would be your new noise ordinance. If someone else, you know, makes a motion and says, you know, upon reconsideration and in viewing the mayor's issues raised on veto, I move to, you know, approve, and then they read the motion that's in the agenda bill before you, and that person gets, you know, the 4 additional. So I don't know what you're going to be voting on, because it depends on who makes the motion, but those, you have options. So someone could bring a motion to approve this version. Someone could bring a motion to approve the one that's already been passed back on August 3rd. And if you do that, then it's over.
All right.
Does that make sense? I feel like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Jennifer, do you?
Sorry, I don't mean to triple dip, and I know you already spoke, so I'm not supposed to speak anymore. But just to make it, you know, fun, is that the word we're really using here? Maybe have both motions prepared as somebody else suggested. One to approve the proposed, the one that's in our packet, right? That's the one that's proposed today. And the one that we passed on August 3rd. So if we have 2 motions there, I guess we'll just play that, if that's okay.
This seems so weird. Why can't we just pick a motion that we're going to read and vote on it?
August 3rd.
Or
Sure, we can include that in the agenda bill for.
or okay, all right. Oh, it looks like we've got okay, so I've already said this is going on general business in 2 weeks. So Jeff and Anna, unless you really have something to add.
Question on process
Okay, Jeff.
that I thought it'd be good to clarify. So if someone reads a motion, say the motion is to approve the August 3rd version, is someone else able to make a motion to amend it and say 183 feet? I just want to be clear on that before we go into 2 weeks from now.
So if someone did something different than the August 3rd version, My reading of the veto section of the charter is that is then a new ordinance that could be subject to veto. So what it looks at in the charter is that you passed an ordinance, and obviously the material provision of this, and it's up for discussion, is the foot, right? So if someone makes a motion for an ordinance that's different than what was passed on August 3rd, then and it is the version that passes, the administration or the mayor could also veto that one. If the majority of the council passes the version that was already voted on August 3rd, then the mayor can no longer veto that version.
Okay,
And
thanks. That's very-
when I say a majority, I mean a super majority. Does that make sense? So
It
if
does.
there's a new ordinance passed, then it is the one that was passed August 3rd dies. And the new ordinance is now put back at the beginning of the process wherein it could be vetoed and come back for reconsideration.
All right. Anna,
Also, just speaking in support of having only the August 3rd with no amendments at the first council meet, at the first general meeting in September.
I'll work on that. I hear everybody's comments on that. So, all right, this will be on general business in 2 weeks. Moving on.